Okay, I think we're gonna go ahead and get started. So welcome to the board. First I want to introduce, we have a new member, Alicia. She has replaced Ron Larson. And so he's our fire.
Either us.
Worst comes to worst, you can just say mute all for a minute.
That's the panic button. Right up, yeah, right there.
Right above.
There you go.
Yeah. If you need to.
Are we good?
It's fine.
So Alicia, do you want to kind of introduce yourself?
Sure. So I am Alicia Minicello. I work for Fort Fire Sprinkler Systems. I have been working there for about 13 years. I oversee our office, our design department, and our residential department, which includes our multifamily and single family projects. I review all the designs that go out of our office for all departments, and I coordinate in PI and commercial as well. In our office admin, I have a lot of comments. But I love what I do. I stumbled into fire sprinklers and stayed there, and I don't think I'll ever leave. It's just, it works and it fits, and I really enjoy what I do. The industry is always changing, and that kind of, makes it exciting. So it's good.
Awesome. No, we're glad you're with us.
Thank you very much.
Since she's new, should we go around, just kind of everybody do a little kind of new thing?
Yeah, should I call the meeting to order and then do the welcome?
Yeah, why don't we do that? Go ahead.
Thanks, Jason. So I guess I would like to officially call this October 9th, 2024 Boise City Building Code Board meeting to order. Welcome everyone. Thanks for the kickoff here. And since we do have a new member, let's go ahead and just do a quick round of introductions and start with TJ up on my left, and we'll go around the room and then we'll go up to the folks on screen.
Hi, I'm TJ Sales. I'm a residential general contractor here in Boise. I mostly do I self-perform carpentry work and mostly work on historic homes and historic district.
So
And your stead architects, local architect.
perfect.
I'm Jim Otradowski, also a local architect with CSHQA, commercial projects.
We met with Jason Blaze, the city building official.
I'm Rob Lockwood. I'm with the city attorney. I'm Mike Jordan. I'm in the building department. I supervise all the building inspectors.
We met. I'm Mike Pisano, fire marshal.
Mark Stumbaugh, assistant building official and fire group supervisor.
And then I'm Tiffany, I'm the building admin.
Okay, and then we'll go to the folks on screen. Tyler, you're biggest in front of us, so we'll go with you first.
Yeah, I'm Tyler Resnick. Ms. Oil look like hello. I'm a vice president at McIlvain Companies in Boise, doing commercial, industrial, and heavy civil projects.
Thanks, Tyler. Craig.
Hi, I'm Craig Brasher. I'm with Ally Structural Consulting. We're structural consultants for commercial projects.
Thanks, Craig. And then last but not least, Russ. Russ, are you alive? Russ, are you there? Can you hear us? Maybe not. Russ, raising his hand. Russ is there.
It's some waving by.
Well, Russell's with Inside Architects. It's been around for a while.
Yeah. With that, we'll move on to the next item, roll call. Tiffany, would you do that, please? Since we've already gone through everyone, we should officially do roll call.
Yeah.
No problem. Jim Otterdowski,
Here.
Andy Ersted,
Here.
Riley McCaffey. Tyler Resnick,
Here,
Craig Brasher,
Here.
Melissa Menoncello,
You almost got it.
and Matt Blake. Russ Phillips,
She's got the hand up.
You got
So.
TJ Sales,
Here.
and Mark Newhouse.
Okay, thanks, Tiffany. I just want to mention, should have received an email with documents and handouts for reference for the meeting today. Next, I want to run through the following agenda items for the board meeting today. First, we'll review the meeting minutes from the August 22nd, 2020 board meeting, followed by proposed fire prevention code amendments. Then we will be looking at proposed building code amendments, proposed 1 and 2 family dwelling building code amendments, proposed energy conservation code amendments, and then the PDSB study, and any other items or new business that might be brought to the board. Primary purpose for today's meeting is to review and discuss the draft ordinance amendments to the City Fire Prevention Code, Building Code, 1 and 2 family dwelling building code, and energy conservation code. The City Building Code Board is charged with reviewing these draft ordinance amendments, proposals, and making a recommendation to City Council. I'd like to outline the rules for the public meeting that we're in today. First, city team members shall present the proposed changes to City Code. The board may ask questions for clarification from city team members regarding specific change proposals in question. The board shall hear any testimony from public regarding the proposals in question. Each person wishing to testify shall have up to 5 minutes to do so. The board shall deliberate, ask questions, and shall entertain motions from its members as the final decision and recommendations of the board shall be based upon a roll call vote of a majority of board members present at this meeting. The recommendation will be forwarded to the Boise City Council. Next, I'll move on to agenda item number 4, meeting minutes approval.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I move we approve the meeting agenda or the meeting minutes from August 22nd, 20. As written.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a second from
Sales.
Mr. Sales. So we have a motion and a second. Do we open the floor to any discussion?
I do have one question. So we had talked about the translation of 15 cubic feet of battery storage and how that translates to the typical battery storage devices that we see in either solar systems. Did the city have an opportunity to go back and look at what that may actually apply to?
Well, I did. I asked NFPA, because there's a section in NFPA that deals with 15 square feet, and I contacted ICC. Asking where the 15 cubic feet had come from, and I didn't get an answer that really made much sense, other than it was just convenient. So that was a number that just came up. Nobody really could give me a rhyme or reason as to why it was not more or less.
But
So
the conversation was centered around that does not necessarily translate to a car battery being an energy storage system, correct?
a car battery, no, would not. Well, I mean, in essence of it being used as an energy storage system for the vehicle itself, it would be, but not in this context of what we're talking about here.
Yeah, and I was only inquiring in context of the code. And so that's what I was trying to clarify is, you know, do cars fit within that category of the 15 cubic feet batteries? And if so, how does it apply to the code? It does not sound like it does, though, because they're not considered energy storage systems.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
Thank you for that question. I think that's consistent with what is indicated in the meeting minutes, so. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll close the floor to discussion and we'll move to approval of the minutes. We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from the August 22nd, 2024 building code board meeting as presented. All those in favor, please indicate by aye.
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 Any opposed by the same call? The minutes pass. Thank you. Next, we'll go on to agenda item number 5, where city team members present proposed changes. We'll start with item 5A. Boise City Team reviews proposed changes to city code. And then following that presentation, we will entertain questions from the board.
Okay, thank you. So if you recall from last meeting, we were going through the city fire prevention code. We had some administrative changes. We had some changes to the wildland urban interface section. And then we had this section, this appendix section on the battery storage. So we started into that. And I think we left off at the fire alarm requirement, if I remember. 42 or 77. Before we jump into that, is there any questions from last time on the previous portions?
You should, just so you know, this is pretty much verbatim out of the 2024 RFC.
Thank you.
So 4207 is fire alarm. Talks about laboratories, research and development. Well, again, it talks about these air sampling type smoke detection and radiant energy. So I don't know if you guys want to speak to that at all. Mike or Mark.
Just that the earlier detection of, I mean, these things off gas, right? So before they decide to blow up,
So
they're becoming.
So it's saying it's going to want fire alarms in laboratories, manufacturing, and
Correct.
storage. Right.
Correct.
What these sections are saying.
Yeah, and they're addressing, group M occupancies, which I think that's where you'd find the most, potential for danger to the public, if you will. I'm assuming public.
So it's kind of an enhanced fire alarm system for the batteries in those.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, when it comes to detection, air sampling is the quickest reaction. So that's the whole intent, is to give us earliest notification if there's something going on with the batteries.
Any questions on that section, or seem pretty straightforward? Okay. So the next section is energy storage systems. That's 4208. Basically, it's going to lay out when you have an energy storage system, and we are seeing these more and more with our solar installations now. We're seeing the batteries coming on our solar installation. So that would be your energy storage system. So you've got the early detection. Just a detector again. You've got, what's this corrective action plan?
I think that stems back to them having the failure analysis. When they do the study, that they also have to submit the corrective action plan to. It's mitigating, it includes mitigating the emergency plus, I think, the aftermath, like the disposal, the evacuations, alarm, I mean, it's basically all the emergency requirements, all the emergency like notification requirements and mitigation requirements for having said storage. But again, the exception is 1 and 2 family dwellings in town, right?
Yeah, so this is commercial, yeah. But I forgot, there is a. So this section doesn't pertain to the energy storage systems for 1 and 2 family. There's a separate section.
I have a question. So I just have two questions. So 4208.2 specifically indicates there's an exception for 1 and 2 family dwellings in townhouses.
Mhm.
I don't see that called out for these next two sections. For the early detection.
Because the next ones are subsections of that section,
Okay.
it pertains.
So it does pertain to the subsection. Okay, and then on the 4208.2. Is there a enforcement mechanism? Or how is that going to be handled? Because it talks about that if you have a battery storage system that's installed prior to adoption, shall provide this information for review and approval.
There was a operational permit that's required for
Okay,
For the storage.
okay.
so that would be handled under the operational permit.
I just want to make sure that if you're requesting that, there's a waiver, it can be tracked and enforced. Mr. Chair. Yes, I understand.
I have a question also relative to 4208.2.1 early detection. It identifies the requirements of section 1207.1.8.1 and 1207.1.8.2. Are those sections administrative references that would give additional information about early detection, about required alarms, things of that nature?
Yeah, sections that are in the 2018 IFC.
Okay. We go down these rabbit holes, and then we have this obscure little, go back to section 1207. It's like.
And that was part of my problem when I was putting this together, is trying to, because their original went to the 24 version. So I was trying to figure out what that related to in the 18 version. So I had to go through and change all these so they reference the correct sections. So these all would reference the 2018.
Okay.
And
Thanks, Mark.
And our approach here too was putting all of this stuff in one appendix in the fire chapter. When you adopt the 24 code, it's intermingled in the different chapters. So when we do go to the 24, we'll come back and just delete this appendix and it'll be gone. And then when we adopt the 24, it'll just be in the code. That was kind of the approach of putting it in the appendix, just for simplicity. But you're right, these sections have to correlate with the 18 because we have the 18 adopted, right? Yeah.
Okay.
I have a question. This is Tyler Resnick.
Yep.
Is a thermal runaway event defined anywhere in the code?
It's a good question. I don't think so, not specifically, no. Not to my knowledge, anyhow.
Because I'm just curious how you differentiate a thermal runaway event from just a fire.
It's defined, I mean, there is an accepted definition outside of the code within the lithium ion battery industry or the electrical industry. So we would
I would use that if somebody was coming to me, like for any other definitions that aren't in the code, I would take, you know, Webster's dictionary definition or industry standard definition. So it is defined out there. So I myself am not worried about it maybe not being defined in the code because there is such a definition that is accepted in the industry.
Yeah, I just don't want people attempting to use it as a loophole if it's not defined. It's like, oh, I only have a 15 cubic foot energy storage system that's not capable of a thermal runaway event because there isn't 5 of them. Can you just like, I'm wondering if we should define it so that somebody doesn't try and leverage it as some sort of loophole, like it's not defined in the code. Therefore, I don't have to do early detection systems.
Well, the quantity of batteries wouldn't be relevant to thermal runaway. Thermal runaway is a ignition source, an ignition, how a fire is started. It's not a thing, it's an action. So it's just how a fire would start. So during a fire investigation, it would be determined on whether it was an outside source outside the battery that started the fire, and the batteries were just damaged by something else, or the fire was initiated by a thermal runaway inside the battery. So, I mean, one single cell, in theory, could have a thermal runaway and start a fire. The quantity of battery wouldn't really play into it at all as far as when a thermal runaway would be possible.
I see. So if there's a thermal runaway happening inside of a battery, how is an air sampling device going to pick that up?
They off gas.
Okay.
There's off-gassing ports built into these batteries to so that the battery itself shouldn't swell up and explode. However, that's where the gases are actually emitted from, and those gases, however, are the flammable gases that end up catching fire once it sparks a flame. So
That's that air sampling sensor that picks that up.
yeah, it's been talked about how at first they tried to do, let's just do a smoke detector, or let's just do a heat detector. Well, the heat didn't show up until the explosion, but they were actually catching earlier. They were catching these earlier by air sampling and getting the gases to come in, and then it's early warning, but it's telling you it's imminent, basically. So
Thank you for the clarification.
Okay, good questions. 4209 is just the commodity classification. Looks like putting it as a high hazard.
Yeah, because there's no lithium ion doesn't exist in the existing table. Yeah.
And then the next is the reference standards for e-mobility devices and electrical e-bikes, right?
Yep.
So good to have those referenced. And then the technical assistance is 4211. You probably have to explain that one.
Well, basically, this is just talking about most people aren't battery experts. So it's just finding somebody. I mean, most people, you know, Home Depot and that they don't have a battery, lithium ion battery expert. So they'll hire somebody, whether it be an FPE, more than likely, to tell them what kind of hazards they're going to have, what the possibility is of fire based on how they're storing it, whether quantities or anything like that. So it's just, it's more of a recommending, because it to recommend necessary changes in how they either store them, use them, or whatever the case may be, manufacturing. It falls into pretty much everything. Basically, it's just telling you, get somebody who knows what the hazards are to tell you how to do it safe.
It's nothing different than what's already in the fire code as far as allowing the fire code official to request technical assistance.
Okay, any questions on that? Then we'll move on to single family. Number 2. So this was again commercial. Good.
Mr. Chair. I have a simple question in terms of, you know, part of what we're trying to do is make sure that the code is readable, right? It's legible to the general consumer, and so. Do we have a confidence that 4211.2 gives the reader enough information to anticipate that they will have to provide a report, or is that report really at the discretion of the fire authority?
So the way it should read to someone reading it is, you should understand that the fire code official can request it at the cost of the applicant.
Right.
The technical assistance from a third party expert. Not basically, it's kind of, it's so that somebody doesn't have this the expectation that I'm a battery expert and I have to say yes or no, like right now, I actually can request technical assistance, and it's not I don't bear the burden of paying for the technical assistance. That's
And I pick up on that. I just want to make sure everyone else, this is part of our job, right?
Yeah.
We
It's
read these.
consistent with, it's consistent with the other, with the same references in the fire code, in the other sections of the fire code already. So, I've explained it before when doing things, and quite often when we talk to people that are bringing these, especially commercial, right? It's already known.
Yeah.
And, there are a few, like, I guess when you probably get to like some single family stuff, dealing with some contractors, maybe they like might not completely understand this just yet, but so I'm not sure if you think it's not an easy read. I just don't know what we would say because it's already in the rest of the fire code. I wouldn't want to then go back through.
Mike, I think it works.
Okay.
I just from the sort of the holistic perspective, want to make sure that when somebody comes in with a building permit and they have a grumpy client, well, I never anticipated that or this or that. I just, you know, and we run into that often where in the codes there are these sort of trigger points that say we can or we have the opportunity to require this, and so that's one of these trigger points. We have the opportunity to require this if we in our review feel that this exceeds a threshold of life safety. In essence, is what that's saying.
And I think in most cases, if you're buying a system, a prepackaged type system, there's going to be data sheets and engineering that comes with that already tells you how to mount it. You know, it can't be too close to this or that or whatever. So I think in most cases that would probably suffice. It's when you get outside of the norm that you're going to have to, either my guys, PM, or somebody is going to have to say, hey, this doesn't really fit with what the data sheet's saying. Maybe we need to have somebody else external look at this and provide a report on this if what we're doing is adding.
Yeah, this is board member Tyler Resnick. I wonder if this section makes more sense to tuck underneath of 4208.1. Is basically telling someone if you have an energy storage system, then this could happen.
I think the only reason it seems to fit where it is currently is we still have the commodity classification is 42 and 9, and we still have reference standards. And so until we work through all those, and then the fire code official is still confused, which is most likely gonna happen. Then we go down to the technical assistance portion. So I just don't know. Wherever we think people will find themselves aware of it. But I believe this is the actual in the order in which 24 code had it, correct? I don't, if we change it now, then I would just hate for us to then, when we go to the 24, are we gonna have to come in and amend? Because this is where we in Boise feel that it fits, so, it'd be more work.
All
As
right.
long as it's, yeah, as long as it's in there, I'm fine with it. And oftentimes, when this does happen, it's an easy explanation on my part or Mark's part. And if people still think that Mark and I made up the rules, we just get the commentary and show them the commentary of the people that wrote the code, like, again, so there's a lot of backup, I would say, to the explanation, and at least while we're here, I can guarantee we explain it fairly well and work with people, so I'm comfortable with the language, and I'm personally comfortable with it, but if anybody feels the need that we really need to move it, I would just think that we just might want to watch out and not have to do more work. But I do understand where you're coming from.
Mr. Chair. I think it's a great observation. A lot of times in the codes, we find references looking forward or references looking back, and maybe under energy system storage, it's as much a sentence at the end of 4208 to reference 4211.1 for technical assistance questions and observations or whatever, and not necessarily pull back that whole section into 4208.
I think that that's a good approach, because what we're trying to do is make sure people understand that this is an expense that they may be facing as part of the permitting process.
I really like that idea. That doesn't seem to cause any harm and solves the problem.
I do have a question. Is 4211 more all-encompassing? Does it just directly apply to 4208, or does it include any components that would be required?
It could be applied to any.
So at that point, then it would be better to leave it in an all-encompassing area.
Yes.
It speaks to not just the energy storage system, it speaks to the technologies, the processes being used, the products, the facility in which the energy storage system or technology will be in, and materials used to design it. So it is more all encompassing, I think, than just being referring to energy storage systems like you're alluding to. So I think that was why they put that there.
Which is,
I'm pretty sure that's why they put it there. I could after.
Well, it could be for like the manufacturing facility.
Yes. Yes.
Right, I mean, you could apply it to any time that there's uncertainty on whether or not what they're doing is the right way to do it. We can ask for an expert to come in and say, is this gonna be okay?
so is there, and again, I'm coming into this late in the game, you guys have already gone through much of this previously. Is there a section that is specific to the permitting process where this could be referenced?
It would be in.
I don't know specifically.
Because it's so much further down in this code section, I just wonder if that might be where it would be beneficial to reference.
And it is part of this appendix, but the overall appendix is related to the batteries, right? So it's battery related, but it's not just energy storage system related. It's like anything in the battery process,
And
whether it's manufacturing, retail storage, energy, all that.
One of the biggest complaints I get is, I didn't know I had to do this, and how do I get out of it? And if this is specifically referenced at the start of the process. Left where it is, but see this section. That might help with some of that.
Under,
So I think you'd have to go all the way back to the beginning of the appendix.
well, we do have permits, so under 4202.1.
Mhm.
So it talks about permits specifically related to. This chapter.
Yep. Could put something like 4202.4. And reference it. Make a new section in there, that are sitting right under permit.
If you, Mr. Chair, if you look at that 4202.1 permits. It also drives you to where the comment where required by section 4203. And then 4203 talks about that, talks about the requirements. It may be that in 4202.3, we also reference section 4211. Yep. So now we've added 4211 at 4202.3, and I still think you added at 4208.2 also.
Yeah, I agree. If you add a sentence at 4202.3, another sentence for technical assistance, refer to section 4211, I think that would cover it. So you.
Yeah.
Think you need it in both sections?
If there's the desire to absolutely eliminate any questions, I would say put it in both locations. It says.
But then if it does apply to all of this and not just 42, that would then open the door to have to put it in every other section as well.
I
think
would be okay with maybe putting it in like 4202.
4202.
Yeah.
Just add it to the 42, or after where it says 4203.
Yeah, a new sentence.
Yeah, well, a sentence or just add it as. Because it already says use is regulated by,
Oh, just add the section.
just add that section, or do we want a sole separate sentence?
If you made a 4202.4, it would really highlight that.
And okay, so as a separate
But
sentence.
it could also just be added as a section that it abides by. I think I could waive, but it would make it really obvious if it was its own line item system.
Yeah.
Because I think the way it's right now, I woudeN't want to add it just to that existing sentence, because that's really permits shall be required. Where this is technical assistance.
Yeah.
But it's triggered by the permit.
Triggered by the permit. So I'd either want to see it as a separate sentence added to that. Or a separate line.
I would suggest it'd be 4202.3.1. Make it subsection.
Okay. I would be okay with that.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that approach.
So just so the fact that we are going to require a permit, just know that this permits aren't required to be authorized. It's just that our jurisdiction requires a permit. Because like when you read the permit section in the fire code, it says the fire code official is authorized. But if, let's say, pretty much kind of like we currently have, we hardly have enough people to do our current jobs anyway. So I'm adding one more thing I have to govern, one more thing I have to send somebody out to go do. If for some reason the city was like, all the fire inspectors are gone and you just have to have a fire marshal, it's going to be very hard to do permitting. So there would be, I guess, don't necessarily want to tie it to a permit. It's just if you have this, the fire code official can do this, just please know that. But I mean,
know that we're gonna require operational permits here. It'll just be, that's just like one of the caveats to saying we're gonna do the permit, because we can easily fall away from it, but still make all these requirements, no matter what.
I think that was a question, Mike, in our last meeting was. With all of these adjustments and changes and new regulations, how are you, how many people is that adding to your inspection?
We'll get nobody.
You'll get
It's
nobody.
adding
But it's adding workload, and that workload in theory should translate to FTEs, but it doesn't.
It should. Easier done if we were a fire district, going harder when you're a municipality.
Yes, okay.
Yeah. So basically, it'll, myself. I'll take it on first. I take the lunch on the head before my group gets lunch on there.
So what I heard either add a sentence to 4202.3 or add a 4202.3.1 technical systems. Is that
I think this
subsection?
section is.
That's the preferred.
Technical assistance or to.
4211.2.
Okay.
4211.
Okay. Got it. So 4202.3.1 is the preferred. Great, thank you. Okay, so it's 4212. These are sections that do apply to one and two family dwelling. So there's section on electrical vehicle charging systems where provided are supposed to meet NFPA 70. Any charging systems are supposed to meet UL 2202. Any electric vehicle supply equipment shall be listed labeled and meets UL 2594. So that's just calling out all those national standards to meet. Then we get into energy storage systems. So these ones would be tied to the solar that we see, right? They're getting the batteries. So says, okay, energy storage system shall comply with this section, but then we have exceptions first. Energy storage systems listed and labeled for use in habitable spaces in accordance with UL 9540 and where installed. You know what the UL 9540 is?
I don't.
And then energy storage systems less than 1 kilowatt per hour, which are just minuscule.
I'm assuming 9540. I'll look it up. It's for obviously for the smaller packaged, non-homemade battery walls for the 1 or 2 gallon dwellings.
Yeah, see if you can look up UL 9040 real quick. But then down here, it gives you right back to UL 9540 here for energy storage system shall be listed and labeled. Then it has another exception where approved, repurposed, unlisted battery systems from electric vehicles are allowed to be installed outdoors or in detached units located not less than 5 feet from exterior walls, property lines, and public.
Okay, the standard, I don't know if I'm authorized to spend $1,200 to snag it right now. But it's energy storage systems and equipment is UL 9540. Okay.
So of course, meet manufacturer's instructions in the listing, and we've got spacing. Individual units shall be separated from each other by not less than 3 feet, except where other separation distances are specified by the listing and the manufacturer's instructions. Energy storage system shall be installed only in the following locations: detached garages and detached accessory structures. Attached garages separated from the dwelling unit living space. Outdoors or on the exterior side of the exterior wall located not less than 3 feet from doors and windows directly entering the dwelling unit. except where smaller separation distances are permitted by UL 9540. It looks like the general rule is 3 feet, but if you go into that UL listing, maybe you can get a little bit less. In enclosed utility closets, basements, storage or utility spaces within dwelling units with finished or non-combustible walls and ceilings. Walls and ceilings must have a 5/8 inch type X chipboard. Openings in the dwelling shall be not less than 3/8 thickness. It's pretty much like that garage separation we do in garages anyway.
Mr. Chair. Jason, choose collector relative to this. We're starting to see a lot of assemblies with type C, fire rated. Or do we want to list type X or type C, or should we just list it as associated fire rated assembly?
Are we saying type C in residential? Only in commercial.
Commercial mostly, it has more water content. Generally in a floor ceiling assembly, you can get away with just a 1 layer of type C versus 2 layers.
That's in a commercial application.
And to be honest,
Are you doing residential with type C?
We're doing multifamily with type C. And that's where
it is tougher to get to. I mean, and it may be around more prevalent now, but when we first started seeing it, it wasn't a product that was readily available. It was a special order item.
And we're dealing with it in different jurisdiction marketplaces, Southwest. So, sorry to derail.
Oh, no problem. I think the point of this isn't saying if you're gonna have energy storage system in one of these, you're gonna separate it like we do a garage for the house. And have the self-closing door. Energy storage system shall not be installed in sleeping rooms or closet or spaces opening directly into sleeping rooms. Energy ratings. These shall have a maximum rating of 20 kilowatt per hour. Aggregate rating of the system shall not exceed these 40, 80, and 80. So it looks like they got a maximum rating too. Does have a reference to the fire code 1206. So electrical, you got to comply with NFPA 70, which is our electrical code. Does say inverters need UL 741 and it references again UL 540. Fire detection, rooms and areas within dwelling units, basements, attached garages with energy storage systems shall be protected by smoke alarms. Being a heat detector listed and interconnected to the smoke alarm is being installed in locations within dwelling units and attached garages where smoke alarms cannot be installed based on our listing. Then you have protection from impact. So we want to protect those systems from, vehicles in the garages. So looks like they've got some dimensions here.
Jason, this is Tyler Resnick. Hey, did that just say to put a smoke alarm in a garage?
It did, but it's basically saying on the listing you probably need a heat detector instead right here.
Oh, okay, I missed that part.
And this is one thing when we go to our 1 and 2 family dwelling building code proposal, the state, I guess, actually did get this heat detector through as a temporary rule recently.
It's sent to the governor.
Yeah. So this is just for energy storage systems, but they actually put in our residential building code, they want a heat detector in every garage now, smoke detectors for single family. So ties into this. And in our other building code we'll go to, the state made the change again, we're gonna have the 5/8 type X in the garage. Because there were exceptions where you had half inch, got rid of that. I think it's because the prevalence of fire in the garage are like, okay. So they get the garages back to fire rating, and then now we have a heat detector. But this heat detector is just for when you have an energy storage system, this specific section.
I worry a little bit about putting heat detectors in an unconditioned space. Some of them are pretty sensitive, and go off at 110 degrees. And just depending on whether or not you have a glass garage door and they're put in a bad spot, you could set one of those off.
I think what it's gonna show that is the rate of rise detectors aren't good for garages and fixed temperature heat detectors are gonna be the way to go for garages. I have one of mine and it's fixed temp because I didn't want to deal with my fire alarm, my smoke alarms going off and we open and shut the garage door, so.
Yep.
I think we're just gonna find that, hopefully, if anybody were to ask me, I would tell them do a fixed temperature, but I think just through some people complaining, we're gonna find out whether or not, I just don't know if we wanna dictate.
Do you know what the temperature is at? So,
I mean, just whatever would not be a false positive in your area, right? So I guess Phoenix would be different than here.
yeah.
Yeah.
Phoenix would probably set off fire sprinkler right now.
Yes, I would probably, who has a Tesla and his garage is hot enough that it just storage mode, it runs to cool the car. That's above the maximum temperature the car will let it sit at.
Wow. Wow.
And he has a little other stuff in the house. It's crazy. I'll visit him.
Okay, so back to these clearances. I think it's easier to see that figure. Just draw it out.
Yeah.
So it kind of shows you in a garage where you've got these energy storage systems and what kind of clearances you should have. And or if you need bollards, right? Is that what they're showing on the side here? So there's some good different options depending on where you put the system in the wall. To have clearances or to have bollards to protect from just running into it. We have that for our, furnaces in the garage too, right? There's the bollards, so you don't get the water heater and furnace. So again, that's the impact. Here's again mentioning the bollards. Kind of specs you need on the bollards. Different options for the bollards. I guess wheel barriers are another option. You probably don't see that quite as much, but I guess they put it in as an option if you want to put wheel barriers versus. And then ventilation.
Jason, you have a spelling error, and I'm
Which one?
Yeah, we
item
know.
3 right there. It says ponds instead of pounds.
Awesome, good catch. On the bollard section. Hey, great, got that. So ventilation. Indoor installations of energy storage to produce hydrogen or other flammable gases during charging shall be provided with mechanical ventilation in accordance with the mechanical code in 1307.4. Actually, it says of the IRC. Is that right? Yeah, I guess we do have, we do have that mechanical section about the IRC. Yeah, we're good. We have both.
And that would only apply if they're using lead acid batteries.
Yeah, so most times you don't need it, right?
Yeah, because the lithium ion batteries are not supposed to.
Yeah.
So again, it's just talking about electrical vehicle use and FP 70. So electric.
Jason, this is Tyler Resnick.
Yep.
4212.4.14 electrical vehicle use. The temporary use of an electrical powered vehicle to power a dwelling unit while parked. I have a truck that is capable of doing this, and I've done some research on this. I
Yeah.
don't know that any manufacturer actually recommends that you use your vehicle to do this, and there are no actual devices that are UL rated and approved to convert that electricity to power
That
an electrical panel in a home.
Is that the Ford Lightning that does that?
Yeah, Lightning does it, a Power Boost does it. I have the Power Boost, and you know, a lot of people in Texas were doing it during the ice storms that happened there a few years ago. But there was some very jury-rigged ways of doing this, and there's a lot of conflicting information about how to do it. But certainly, there's nothing that's endorsed that I'm aware of, and actually certified through UL to do this safely.
Yeah, and I guess what this is saying is, yeah, if you do it, you comply with the vehicle manufacturer's instructions and the electrical code as much as we can, right? Is all it's saying, but I don't know. I really
Probably
don't.
like, extension cords, use of permanent wiring, all this kind of, basically, yeah, it's just
What
the
connection?
receptacle.
What connection are you seeing, Tyler? Well,
It's actually the part of wiring up the service panel in the house is the problem, because you're sending a load that is inconsistent with the original power feed to the panel itself, and that's highly questionable. Like, it's not something that the panel was rated for. And so I don't think there is a vehicle manufacturer's instruction that's going to tell you how to do this, because honestly, it's people bending the rules on what the intended purpose was for the electrical service coming from the vehicle. And NFPA 70 is not going to address how to do this. It will talk about, you know, fire hazards of using the wrong type of wire, the wrong type of breakers, things like that. I'm just not aware of any approved method of actually doing this that's endorsed by either NFPA or UL, or any sort of panel manufacturer that has residential panels.
okay. I guess think.
So I'm okay with it saying this. I'm just saying that I don't think there is a single avenue anywhere where this can be done legally.
Yeah, because the Ford Lightning sure advertises that you can do it, don't they?
I think where Tyler's getting with this is, it's not necessarily the source, the Ford Lightning or whatever, or for that matter, freestanding generator, a generator or something. It's that connection into the panel that's the dubious link.
Right, but once you do this, I mean, what's the difference if we plug our Tesla into our house panel or if we have a Tesla wall? And I think that's basically what this is saying at that point. Once you do that, they're in essence the same thing. So you're gonna have to follow NFPA 70 as if you were hooking a Tesla wall to your house
To
panel.
your panel,
Yeah,
as your emergency power.
yep,
We had a few of the Tesla walls to install.
yep.
As long as it says you have to comply with NFPA 70, I'm pretty sure that nobody's going to be able to do this.
That may be, right?
How many of those connections, Tyler, actually read NFPA 70?
Right.
Yeah, I'm not sure. All I can tell you is the research I did online was sketchy at best.
Yeah, and I'm not seeing. What you guys seeing now?
So,
Other than the
it
Tesla
might be
wall.
Florida tomorrow.
Other than a couple of the Tesla walls we have permitted in.
It had to be some sort of inverter.
Yeah, well, yeah, like I say, it'd be the same as if you had a Tesla. If that's how Tesla walls, they go through an inverter. Yeah. You know, they have their own disconnects and all that other kind of support, they even get to the house.
Yeah.
It's like, not the same, but it's the same, I guess. Parallels it. It's the same as if you had a backup generator sitting out in your yard. It has to be wired in correctly. So it's just, as long as the wiring to the panel is correct, that's where we're gonna stop the overloading a panel and blowing somebody's panel wide open, so.
Fine. Okay, so I guess just noted concerns on this one. And you're right, this technology keeps changing, right, as we speak. There's always new stuff on this. So the last few sections here, are just stationary engine generators, and it does talk about UL 2200, just meet that. And then you got stationary fuel cell power systems, and that one says meet 1206 of the fire code. Now, I'm not sure that we've seen a lot of these. Have we seen? I'm sure that we have some home generators here and there.
Generators, but I haven't seen any fuel cell.
Yeah. So that's the end of the fire prevention code.
I do have a question. Let's see. It's 4212.4.5 locations, number 4.
Can you say that one more time?
Yes, 40, sorry, 4212.5, sorry, I can't get it out. 4212.4.5, number 4. Number 4. So it starts out with enclosed utility closets, basements, storage, or utility spaces within dwelling units with finished or non-combustible walls and ceilings. There's an or in there that, for me, is concerning because what does finished mean? I've seen houses where they will put tongue and groove right up to the trusses. I would consider that a finished space, but it's certainly not non-combustible. Where, because this is giving it an option of a place that this could be stored or housed, that just kind of threw a red flag. And I don't know if this verbiage was taken directly out of another source.
Yeah.
But the or in there, where it does continue on to say, here's what you do if you have unfinished wood frame construction, but the finished or is, it kind of contradicts itself.
Yeah, finished for us, chipboard. Because we see a lot of unfinished basements, unfinished garages, and they're exposed.
Yeah.
So when I read that, I view it as probably a wood frame finished area, or it's saying or non-combustible. We rarely see non-combustible. Single family. This is single family.
Finished. So I guess then,
So it'd be like steel stud.
Yeah.
Okay.
so
I see what she's saying, though. It does leave it open for the possibility of being an alternate finish besides drywall.
mhm.
Yeah.
Well, and even with the finished, I mean, the text here basically says if it's an unfinished space, you shall do these things to make it a finished space. But if someone has a finished space, it may not contain all these other elements that are listed here. It may not have a solid core door, self-closing and latching.
Right.
So,
And they're like, finished maybe T111.
but even if it is gyp, it could be a room
You
that's
gotta use
finished.
the Jip below, right? Makes sense.
Well, it says if it's unfinished,
And that's very specific to unfinished
Walls
wood
and
frame
ceilings of
construction.
unfinished wood frame construction,
Right.
shall comply with this, so there's really no qualifiers for what that finished space is, so it could be a finished space with half-inch chip. With a hollow car door with roller catches and not self-closing hinges and latch. That would meet the intent of what you have to do, it's unfinished.
I think the next one, when it. So there's that one sentence that talks to, if it's unfinished, here's what you do. And then it immediately goes into, openings into the dwelling shall be equipped with solid wood doors not less than 1 inch thickness. And does put rating, the
Okay,
rated doors in it.
Sorry,
I think if this, that one sentence is, if it's not finished, you gotta do this, and then it picks back up again.
yeah,
No matter what, going into that dwelling, you still have to
are you
have.
saying when it's non-combustible, doesn't have to be finished? Is that what you're saying?
No, it was just, it just leaves interpretation open because there's an or. Finished or.
Right.
It doesn't qualify what that has to consist of. Go ahead, sorry.
I'm sorry, I think that though. You're talking about a space that may have been already completed, say. 2 or 3 years ago, it's not the construction.
Okay.
Put one of these systems in that area.
Well, if that's the case, then that would raise the question. What was it finished with? Would it be this lower section of the type X?
Was a Mr. Chairman. Jason, is there a definition of finished?
Well, they don't
in
have
the
it.
code? I don't think there is. Because Alicia's saying,
When we permit things though, we permit like this home with a 2,000 unfinished basement. So with a 600 unfinished garage, but most time today, the unfinished basements do happen, but the garage is most time the finishing case. Every once in a while we get one.
Yeah, but I think now even with the basement, if it's unfinished, you still have to put something on the ceiling.
Yeah,
We can't leave it.
you have to have that rating.
We
yeah.
can't leave it.
But you could have,
It was more just that, and we do a lot of custom home installs. We've seen situations where they're putting ceiling right up to the structure, fancy decorative ceiling, and there is no gym. And it is, even if it were an existing space that fit into that box, is that what this is going for, given that the other options below go into much more detail? There is one other thing that I'm not sure if the intent is how it reads or if there's a word missing in here, but openings into the dwelling shall be equipped with solid wood doors not less than 1 inch thickness, and it continues on. Is that supposed to specify into the storage space specifically, or does that mean all the doors that go into the house? Is
I think it's trying to say they want a rated room for this energy storage system, and where you go into the dwelling, that where needs to be rated.
okay.
They're just trying to isolate a kind of quasi 1 hour rating on the room where you got the energy storage system separated from the dwelling.
I think it would be more definitive if you were to remove finished and changed it.
Limited or non-combustible wall system.
That's defined. Well, depending, I mean,
That's defined.
right. Or you change it with a rating, like you, 1 hour rating. Dwelling units with 1 hour rated or non-combustible walls and ceilings. That might even be better than limited.
Actually like that, Mark.
Yeah, because that way there's no question. It's gotta be outrated or non-combustible, completely one or the other.
Well, and if
Because that's basically what they're
Well,
going
but
for.
she has
Now, is one-
when you have an unfinished space, it's asking for that essentially.
Yeah,
with
so
this
it's
description.
consistent route. Unless you've got the money to non-combustible.
Right.
Yeah, you guys tell me, I'll write it down. So. Somebody want to repeat that?
Well, where it says dwelling unit, you guys like the 1 hour idea rather than the,
I think that's more specific
I think so.
and it matches what you would have to do were it an unfinished space.
So it
Make
would
it-
be dwelling units with 1 hour rated or non-combustible indiscriminate finish. And change it for
So it's not really fully one.
Yeah, I don't-
Modified one. So you want me to say rated? Or for finish? With rated or non-combustible?
Could we just get rid of the finish and put not less than 5/8?
Well, no, because you have the option of it not being non-combustible below. So for consistency's sake, you gotta put something in there. That kind of coincides with what's below it.
You don't wanna put 1 hour because that's gonna cause all kinds of problems down the road on the inspection side. Then I feel people are gonna have to do a lot of
Well, let's
extra
go with
things.
rate.
And
Yeah, I think rated. Fire rated or rated.
Could you just change this? To say, for utility spaces with dwelling units with. And then maybe you have. As I say, combustible or non-combustible walls and ceilings. And then you would go on to say walls and ceilings of combustible. Construction shall be provided not less than 5/8 inch. So you're basically telling them the prescriptive path of if it's combustible construction. Has to have a 5/8 X.
Everywhere
Rather than
else,
saying.
Yeah.
everywhere else, they're throwing up 1/2 inch rock.
Mhm.
Right,
And so we're saying, in this area with energy storage system, you need to have 5/8 X. In that,
Or,
in that
or it can be
containment
non-combustible,
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because if you're non-combustible, you don't need to have.
Right. right.
Okay,
I just want to make sure I'm not missing something by doing that change, but. Enclosed
can we
utility,
repeat that?
so I was proposing enclosed utility closets, basements, storage and utility spaces within dwelling units with. Combustible or non-combustible walls and ceilings, period.
So replace finish with combustible.
And then where you say walls and ceilings of combustible. And I just say combustible, you could get rid of wood frame, combustible construction shall be provided with not less than 5/8 inch Tyvek gypsum board.
So replace wood frame with combustible.
Or, you know, replace unfinished wood frame and just put combustible.
So you're saying in any case where you have combustible construction. It shall be finished with not less than 5/8 inch Tyvek.
I think that is the intent of what they really want to say. here.
And then that way you're not concerned whether it's finished or unfinished, but just whether it's combustible or non-combustible and how it's treated if it is combustible.
So replace unfinished wood frame with combustible.
Mhm.
Figure.
Yeah.
Got it.
Am I creating any openings or loopholes here by that change that I'm
I
missing?
think so, I think that's much more specific.
Okay,
Because if you have non-combustible walls and ceilings, the rest of that is irrelevant because it's non-combustible. I think that's it.
got it. Hey, do we want to take a 5-minute break before we jump into the next one? Want to? Yes, the bathroom's right out here to the right, or even to the left.
Take a momentary adjournment.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's reconvene the meeting. And with that,
Mr. Chair,
yes, understand.
I would. Move that the Boise City Building Code Board. Approve as discussed and amended the Boise City Title V, Chapter 12. Fire Prevention Code with a draft date of 8/23/24 and notes as completed today on October 9, 2024 in our code board meeting. After.
I have a motion,
I'll second that.
second from Craig Rashid. With a motion and a second to approve the city code title 5, chapter 12, fire prevention code. Draft date 23 with the notes from today's meeting. I'd open to discussion. I have a procedural question on this. Since we did not move public testimony on this item, we need to, there is no public present.
Is there any online for public? We have this one public number.
Okay,
Mr. Chair, if I may add a comment, because we are recommending body up to city council, city council will have the opportunity to have public testimony on it.
correct. I just wanted to, we typically would go through that formal step in this meeting, so we didn't quite get to that. So I just wanted to make sure that procedurally we were okay with that with council in the room. It sounds like we are, since we have no public in the room or online. So I think we're good, and your comment is well noted. Any other discussion? With that, I would move for a vote to approve city code title 5, chapter prevention code, proposed amendments draft 23/24 with notes from today's meeting. All those in favor indicate by aye.
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 Those opposed by the same sign. The motion carried unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. Thank you for that. And with that, we will.
Okay.
Make the present the next item.
All right, thank you. So we don't have near as many amendments in these other codes, so maybe I can go through them fast, but for our building code. We have just got code compliance back into our planning development services department. I think I might have mentioned that before. And so we're adding changes here, designating code compliance officers, as designees to our codes. They can help us out on our extreme cases. We're still going to do what we do and try to get compliance with sending inspectors out. But we have some where we have, people just ignoring us. We may need to get assistance to code compliance. This is on time limitation on application. Currently, you can submit, you have 180 days. We allow 2 extensions. When you have a permit issued, you have 3 extensions. So we're recommending that we just make them the same. So we're putting 3 extensions, and we're really seeing it right now with the interest rates on these multifamilies. It's taking forever. And it's taking longer than a year and a half, basically. It's taking 2 years. And so this would help with those, because what we have to do is create a whole new permit. You've got that. The other thing here is if we do make it through the application, and we need a new permit, we are charging an hourly rate versus making them pay the full plan review fee. Because if we've got a permit that's ready and it's expired, all we have to do is reroute it, have people sign it off on the permit. So it's just an hourly rate. So that's what this last sentence is saying, which we're kind of doing now anyway. Yeah, because it's just a lot of money on these big jobs. It's got to be 2 plan review fees.
Mr. Chair. Jason, I have one quick question on these, and it may be further down in this discussion, but when you extend out from 2 extension periods to 3 extension periods, what happens if you're straddling a code change?
There is a section in here in another part of our ordinance that says if you let it expire, and we do change codes, you do have to redesign it. Yeah. But if you get that extra extension, you're still a valid application, you're yeah. So in our penalty section, we're adding again what we may request assistance from code compliance officers. as designated agents. And then also we have a notice of non-compliance that we can record against the property if people are ignoring this. And then if they do come back in, get it permitted, inspected and approved, then we would then record a notice of compliance showing that it actually meets it. And then our upgrade agreements, just some minor changes here. Ada County Recorder's Office instead of assessors. Applicable city officials, nothing huge there. Did add the notice of non-compliance as part of the penalty section that align with that other section. And then do say in here that if they do complete it, then we will record a notice of compliance. In our signs appendix, we are striking out this section, which are non-illuminated. We just don't, this is the exempt from permits list. And we're just gonna exempt them if they're the 32 square feet or less. Period. There's just not a lot for us to do on those. And that's it for the building code. That's our IBC building code. That's for commercial. What's proposed.
Jason,
Mr.
this is
Chair.
Tyler Resnick. I have one question. Is there any sort of fee associated with lifting a notice of non-compliance?
No, we do it all internally and then we record it at the county and the county does not charge the city for recording.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
is it appropriate that the board act on this section? Similar to the previous section on fire codes at this point?
Yeah, and probably the public acknowledge no public testimony.
Yes, I would be fine with that. Before we see a motion, I would just like to acknowledge that we have no public in the room for testimony or online. For this item.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With that, I'll move, we adopt, and recommend up to council city code title 9, chapter 1, article A, building code amendments. Draft date 7/3/24 with today's date 10/9/24. Comments and feedback recommendation reflecting review by this board.
Have a motion?
This is Tyler Resnick. I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to recommend city council approve city code title 9, chapter 1, article 8 building code proposed amendments draft date 7/3/24 as reviewed during today's meeting. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, I close the floor and vote to vote. Those in favor of recommending the city council approve city code title 9, chapter 1, article 8 code per the motion in front of us, please indicate by aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by the same sign? Motion passes. Thank you.
Unanimous.
Unanimous.
Great, thank you. So this is the 1 and 2 family dwelling building code, city code, and it's gonna have the same. It's gonna have the same stuff we just saw as far as code compliance and recordings. There are a few changes that align with state law. I'll point those out here. Let's see. So I did have to change up here in the adoption to parts 1 through 3 because the state is deleting part 4. It was that energy code section of the IRC. Now they just do the energy code straight up in its own chapter. Info. This is again the code compliance officers designated as designates for the code. This is the time limitation on application from 2 extensions to 3. Same thing with the hourly rate. Same thing with the notice for asking code compliance for assistance the notice of non-compliance. And then down here, this garage separation is a state change where they are now saying we want all the garages to have 5/8 type X period, no more half-inch exceptions. So that's what that table aligns with the state amendment.
Jason, this is Tyler
Yeah.
Resnick. There's a spelling error on dwelling in the title.
Oh, I love it. Tyler, you're great. Equal. Oh, 3, 4, 3.6. Great catch. Appreciate that. Okay, and then down here, this is aligns with the state where they've deleted exception 2 of the smoke detectors in alterations, repairs, and additions, because that exception pertains to just the plumbing, mechanical, and they have their own section. So they're just saying, let's just deal with building. And they did do the same thing. Oh, here's the section. And in that same, following that section, this is where they have that amendment for the heat detector within the garages. So this is coming in under a temporary rule. Heat detector listed, you can interconnect with the smoke alarms installed in attached garages. And also detached garages that do not meet required fire separation distance and have electrical service. So if you got a detached garage more than 6 feet away, don't need to do it, but if it's closer right up to it within that 6 feet, then you gotta have it in there if it has electrical.
And let's say it's based on table.
Yep.
R
Yep.
6.
Yep, so it's 3 and then 3, so 6. You get a fire separate distance. And then this is the carbon monoxide, and they did the same thing. They deleted exception 2 for alterations and repairs for plumbing and mechanical. They have their own sections on what to do with carbon monoxide, so they just deleted that. And that is it for the 1 and 2 family dwelling. So I would say that's probably the biggest is the biggest thing the state's doing is protecting the garages better in the residential. They're saying 5/8 type X and now it's supposed to be protected.
And that's includes in alterations, repairs, and additions.
It's not, I understood it as being for new community garage. Yeah. There's not really a section that says go back and do it all. Repairs. Would be new homes.
Unless you're doing a major alteration. That pushes you back into that
I totally
criteria.
get it.
Mr. Chair. I would move board upon successful vote, move City Code Title 9, Chapter 1, Article B, 1 and 2 family dwelling building code modifications and updates up to City Council.
We have a motion from Commissioner Erstad. Do we have a second? Second. From Mr. Sales. I have a motion for it. Second.
You just recognize getting the public.
Yes. Moving to discussion, I just want to recognize that we have public present in the room and no public online testimony. With that. we have a
Before,
motion and a second.
I do have one comment. This is Tyler Resnick. I'm getting a flashback to 2019. I felt like the state legislature adopted some regulations that prevented us as a board for making modifications to any residential building code. Do you remember that, Jason?
Yes, well, you can for fire life safety, but these changes here are actually aligning with the state.
Okay.
The state has got this as a temporary rule, this heat detector, go at the governor's office, and this one's already been through the state rules right here, the garage separation, it went last year.
Yep, that's correct.
Yeah, get the 2019 beyond state.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
Then, and any of these other ones are just administrative, and we can do administrative amendments. The code compliance and all that.
Tyler, you're, Mr. Chair, Tyler, the comment is well taken, as we've sat through hours, totaling days with Doppel trying to hold as much of the code as we possibly can. As Doppel's ZBR process with the governor's office was to mitigate, or to not mitigate, but reduce regulation. You're absolutely right in that recollection that the state is kind of holding the line that we can't go beyond the state minimums. In other words, or the state defines the maximums. Our industry can define higher standards, but the code can only hold us to a certain level. So
Yeah, and when it comes to fire life safety, we can do other things. We just would need an additional public hearing.
Right.
Thanks for the clarification.
Any other discussion before we move to a vote? Hearing none, I close the floor. We have a motion in front of us that the City of Boise Building Code Board of Appeals recommends that City Council approve and adopt City Code Title 9, Chapter 1, Article 275 Code, proposed amendments drafting 4 as reviewed today's meeting. Those in favor, please indicate by aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed by the same sign. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone.
Great, thank you. And then the last one here is the Energy Conservation Code. That one's the most restrictive on state. We can really only do administrative. So we're behind on our, and so what changes have occurred in the last 2 years. So this is aligning us with state code now on the energy code. It's the table of contents. So this section here is deleted, and this aligned with the state amendment. They've gotten rid of this amendment. We're deleting it. This is just having to do with the air leakage thermal envelope on commercial. That's no longer valid as a state amendment, so it's being deleted. They did add 2 additional exemptions at the state. For exemptions to energy code, accessory utility and storage buildings, sports practice buildings, accessory to A, B, and E occupancies where buildings maintain no heating or cooling, or where intermittent heating and cooling systems are installed. And then buildings for domestic water wells, irrigation wells, sewer pump facilities, and sewer lift stations, where equipment produces internal heat loads and where intermittent heating or cooling is provided to prevent freezing or overheating of equipment. So those types of buildings are saying you don't need heat. That just kind of makes sense. And then this was piping. This was an amendment on piping. That state no longer has this, so we got to delete this. They got rid of that amendment. Conditioned space. Now this is residential. They did add a sentence to the definition of conditioned space that says this definition shall not apply to garage spaces or other similar spaces where heating or cooling is installed for frost protection or intermittent use. Somebody wants to put a small unit heater in their garage to do their woodworking on occasion, you don't have to meet energy. It's basically what it's saying.
Mr. Chair, until the Tesla has to run. I digress.
And then this next one is just altering the ceiling R value back to 38. Boise previously had an option of 38 or 49. We had 2 options, but we can no longer do that. So this is just going back to what the state has of R38 attic ceiling insulation. And this is deleting the footnote we had that allowed the 38, we had the wall rating up to R21, so we're deleting those footnotes since we can no longer have those in there. And then the state amended the testing section. So that section is no longer valid as written, but what they did do, there is still a testing section in the code, but they added a new exception that says that's the blower door test, right? The envelope to make how tight it is. You can either do the blower door, or now you have this exception that says you can do a visual inspection. And the permit holder has to determine that at time of permit application. To determine your building envelope thickness, a visual inspection shall be considered acceptable in lieu of testing when the items listed in that table in the energy code are field verified. And that can be field verified by our building inspector or a third party. And a lot of people, they do third party still.
Sorry, the visual field verification by the inspector.
Yeah, so I believe the blower door testers are offering the same price for a blower door test or a visual inspection. It's like either or. And we know the blower door works well.
Yeah.
That tells you what you really got. So the rest of these are amendments that are no longer in state code. So we're deleting those. You're aware that state is still relying on the 20 of the IEEC as the minimum standard.
Nuts.
Yeah. Yes. So yeah, all of these have been deleted from state code, so those amendments no longer apply. That's what it is. Okay.
That's to your point, it's the floor, whereas the industry and the clients drive. Yeah,
Exactly.
Okay, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
hearing no additional comments from Mr. Blaze, I would move that we approve up to Boise City Council, City Code, Title 9, Chapter 9, Energy Conservation Code. Draft amendments of 7/3/24 with today's date, October 9, 24. References and recommendations.
We have a motion. Commissioner Brissette.
Second.
We have a second from Commissioner
Minicello.
You didn't give me a chance to practice. I would like to note before we move to discussion that we have no public present in the room or online for comments. With that, I would like to take the motion to approve, and to recommend that Boise County City Council approve and adopt its first city code, Title 9, Chapter 9, Energy Conservation Code. We'll move forward for discussion.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
More an editorial than anything. We're working with DOPL through AIA Idaho and the ZBR process of the governor's office. We are sort of, Idaho seems to be frozen 2009. And then towards 2012 IEEC or IECC standards. And I think if we as a city, I'm really pleased that we are pushing as hard as we can. We're bound by the state limitations, and it's I know it's frustrating for all agencies and all jurisdictions trying to up the energy requirements. Most of us around the table here, and on Zoom, I believe recognize the benefit and the value of the energy codes, and the contemporary codes are actually sort of stabilizing now over the last two iterations. Hopefully we as a team can impress upon our legislators to get out of this mindset that just because it's a energy regulation, it's bad. I think there's this notion that The IECC is a federal mandate. It's not a federal at all. The International Building Code is not a federal agency. And so we just need to be constant vigilant stewards and deliverers of the message. So eventually we can get to where we should be in all of our buildings.
Thank you. Any other discussion? With that, I would move for a vote that the City of Boise Building Code Board of Appeals recommends the Boise City Council approve and adopt the proposed city code Title IX, Chapter 9, Energy Conservation Code, proposed amendments to the draft dated 7/24, and as discussed during today's meeting. Those in favor, please indicate by aye.
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 Any opposed? Any opposed indicate by the same. Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
Great, thank you very much.
And
The
with
city
that,
doesn't allow the city to make their own rules, is that what you
Oh,
know?
no.
yeah,
This is the ongoing that battle that has just gotten worse over the years that, you know, the state touts this, you know, let the cities manage themselves, and yet at every turn in the road, they're trying to overreach and manage. Our
Yeah, and with the energy code especially, it's a very politically
Political.
liberal term.
Yeah.
Yet, but what's really cool is all Vida's residents get to pay extra money because
yeah,
upwards.
yes. First cost versus life cycle. Yeah, that we could have a whole, Mr. Chair, we could have a whole session about the process.
One more item to bring up, and it's informational. We are currently doing a fee study in planning development services. We haven't done a formal fee study since 2009. It's the last one we did. So we've engaged a company called Barry Dunn from the East Coast. Been out here visiting, and we do a lot of virtual meetings with them, but they're really combing through all our fee schedules, all our financials, all our processes. They're gonna kind of give us an analysis of where we're at and maybe recommendations of where we could make adjustments, or maybe, you know, one way or the other, whether up, down, or keep it the same. And that, I believe, is coming in maybe maybe February, March. So we'll have some recommendations, but it'll be recommendations of different options. But I would suspect we would be bringing some of those options to this board just to look at, to get a feel for, you know, from our customer base of where we're at with these fees. But I just want to give you a heads up on that. That's a process. So they've been combing every fee schedule.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Jason, it's just a simple question, and I would hope that you can grab this information and bring it back in front of us if it needs to come. Years ago, the building department was the city's cash cow, and they were siphoning off, you know, significant proceeds from the building boom in the turn, you know, 2008, that time frame, following the decline. Are they evaluating whether or not the building department is still a cash cow into the city? And if so, what are those revenues and how are they being deployed to bring on additional staff to moderate, if you will, additional workloads, especially with some of these code updates?
Yeah, that's gonna be part of it. I mean, they will do full cost of service. And as you know, there are areas where we lose money on permits. There's areas, even sections like planning, their fees are really low compared to what it costs for planning process, right? It's kind of been, there's more risk in planning. They didn't want full cost of service on planning when projects are at risk in the planning process. But they pick it more up on the building, and building kind of makes it when the projects are known, bidding happens. But as a whole, our whole department is typically covered as a fee structure as the whole department, right? But there is a little bit of you know, where do you? We could raise water heater permits up to $300 a piece, but when people get water heater permits, we keep those low for people to get them and go out and do an inspection. $55. We probably lose money on them, we make 2 trips. There's stuff like that, right? Maybe bigger commercial, maybe we do make a little more, some of the larger commercial, but there's anything in between too, right? Stuff where we're probably covering costs. Areas we're not. So it's just, it's kind of it's a shell game for our whole department of what do you want to do, how do you want to charge, and how do you want to get service, right? So there's decisions that have to be made, but you're right, they will do full cost of service and say, here's what you should charge for all processes for full cost. But ideally, when you carry out your business, what should you really be charging?
Mr. Chair, again, I hope that in this evaluation that they are also looking at the people doing all the work. And if we're not achieving a standard or a level of care that's appropriate.
Yes.
That those recommendations would come back, and then I can get up in front of city council and say, we need more. Yeah. All right, I'm
Understood. And yeah, I feel like there's a couple areas where we, you know, we have 320 in the city.
Yeah, this is really.
And with Vitron and St. Luke's coming on, it's gonna get busy, but yeah, straights, right? So, and same with code compliance, right? Code compliance is now coming in our apartment, it's gonna help us additionally, probably gonna be an extra just to handle some of that work. So definitely some discussion.
Great, thank you.
With that, anything else, Jason?
Let's get any other questions.
So I'd like to move on. Yes.
I have a question for Mr. Blaze. Hypothetically, if the city were to condemn a building or label it as unsafe, and the owner of that building were to object, wouldn't that be something that would come before the board, this board, before would go to council?
Not under, if we're doing an abatement code, it actually goes straight to the city council as far as any type of.
Okay, so if you're condemning a building not based on the building code's interpretation of danger, then it wouldn't come to this board for because we're the board that would handle any appeals to the city's interpretation of building code. So if you're condemning a building or labeling it as unsafe, not based on the building code, then it wouldn't necessarily come to this board. Is that right?
Okay, yeah, we can call you and clarify that, but there are certain codes that go to the board and there are certain codes that go straight to city council.
Okay, I was just curious, just because, that may or may not come up sometimes.
Great.
Thank you. Are there any other new items of business? With that, I would ask for a motion and a second to close and adjourn the meeting. Have a motion?
I will motion that we close the meeting at 11:28 a.m.
Second.
Mr. Commissioner, I second that.
Mr. Salem seconds that, so the meeting is officially closed and adjourned on Wednesday, October 9th at 11:00 p.m.